All right, let's get to Cherokee County right now for a news alert. Investigators working to find leads on a suspect who opened fire inside of a bar. 3 people were hurt and sent to the hospital. And Fox Carolina's Lindsey Gibbs is live right now. And Lindsey, it was a chaotic scene overnight.
A very chaotic scene, Margaret Ann, especially for those people just trying to enjoy their night. It turned very terrifying very quickly. Now, the sheriff's office, they're asking for any information, whether that be photos, videos, anything that can help lead them to that suspect that opened fire in a bar here in Cherokee County. Now, go ahead, take a look at your screen. This is where it all happened on Saturday night at Toonby's Tap Room just off Old Georgia Highway in Gaffney. Deputies say when they responded to the scene, they found a 23-year-old woman who had been shot in the leg. The other 2 victims left for the hospital in their own cars before deputies arrived, including an 18-year-old man who was shot in the arm and stomach, and a 42-year-old woman cut up from having to crawl on top of glass to get to safety. Thankfully, all of the victims are expected to be okay, but you can imagine how scary this was for the hundreds of people that were there that night. Witnesses told deputies the suspect left in a dark-colored car with a Georgia license plate. In a statement from Cherokee County Sheriff Steve Mueller, he says the speed of the investigation is determined by the number of people willing to cooperate and share information as to what happened. You simply cannot have several hundred people present and nobody see anything. The person or persons responsible can't be held accountable without cooperation of those present. Now, they're asking anyone with information to either call the investigation ward or call Crime Stoppers. Both of those numbers are listed in our news app. For now in Cherokee County, Lindsey Gibbs, Fox Carolina News.